I am now joined. I have a 10-minute chat with Devrim Celal, who's the CEO of KrakenFlex, part of the Octopus Energy Group. I'm delighted to be joined actually by Devrim. So, first of all, Devrim, how are you?
I'm well, Adam. Thank you. How are you?
Very good, thank you. We heard quite a bit about what we're going to talk about.
Okay.
The vehicle to grid charge. I think it's probably been mentioned even in panels that it wasn't put in the bullet points. So it's clearly a big thing at the moment with a lot of the energy suppliers and utilities. Can I ask you, first of all, Devon, what excites you the most about vehicle to grid charging? Because obviously there's a fantastic concept behind it. We heard Charlotte earlier in the previous panel talk about it in a really, really good way. How will this evolve over the coming years, in your opinion?
So actually, let me take that a little bit different. I'm worried that Charlotte may have covered some of the things that I want to talk about.
Don't
But
worry.
let me take a step back. I think what really excites me is if we look at the history of energy transition and we go back about a decade, we see that the first phase of energy transition, we call it the subsidy era, turned out to be
Mm,
exceptionally successful. Probably one of the best government policies ever. We went from a few gigawatts of renewables in the UK to talking 40s, 50s now. And the biggest global benefit of that phase was the levelized cost of energy from renewables dropped significantly, and it dropped to such a level today that the levelized cost of renewable energy is actually below the marginal cost of generating from thermal power plants. And the beauty of that is you don't need subsidies anymore. So that allows us to operate renewables in a purely subsidy-free merchant world. We call the merchant era, which is the era that we're in now. Now, we still have some
mm,
subsidies. You still have to encourage the industry to keep the momentum going. And that starts to get us towards the next phase, which in equal parts to me is exciting and terrifying, because that's what we call the consumer era. Because as we build more and more renewables, we're going to get to a point where the UK grid by 2050 is going to require 150 gigawatts of additional flexibility. And to
cool.
put that in context, we have 62 today. So we're talking about a 2-3 times growth in the amount of flexibility we need. And the national grid assumption is 80 gigawatts of that will come from consumer flex. Now, define that as you will. But to me, that says you're looking for consumer engagement. And we've
Mm,
got all the elements of that. We'll have 30 million electric vehicles, 20 million heat pumps if our strategy for electrifying heat and transport is achieved. And
mm.
that's what excites me. And vehicle to grid is one of the elements of that. And uh, vehicle 1G, V1G, V2G, it doesn't matter. Any kind of consumer device that we can remotely monitor, control, and optimize, so we're matching their consumption usage patterns with green electrons, is what we need to achieve the full energy transition.
It's frightening, that is. Those figures are really frightening. But it's going to require collaboration, I think, as well. A lot of collaboration.
Yeah, it will require collaboration, but I think, look, scared. I said I'm scared and excited equal amounts. It's
Yeah.
also a completely new business model. We're looking at
Mm,
north of 10 billion pounds of value that will be unleashed from consumer flex. Uh, that's a lot of value to go around to excite people to buy these new technologies and engage with the energy system to help us achieve that green grid.
How can I ask you though? How would utilities respond to this? Because obviously utilities now have got all of these energy transition goals to get to net zero. How is UK going to do that? What's the contribution, and how is it going to hit those energy transition goals?
We got a big challenge there. So I think they should be leading the way. I think we should be leading the way. I'm sitting at an
Yeah.
Octopus Energy office today. But here's the challenge we have. We talked about that, 50 million or so devices that we need to orchestrate. Consumers need to give us permission to do that. But when we look
Yeah.
at if consumers trust the sector, all we have to do is look at Edelman's trust benchmark, which Edelman's publishes every year. And this
Mm,
industry, for the past decade, consistently performed amongst the worst in class. We're rated next to financial institutions. We need to change that trend. We need to
oh God.
win the consumer's trust. And to do that,
Mm,
you need to show that you're experts. And today it takes about 23 minutes on average for a utility to respond to a phone call. We need to be honest about what we tell the consumers,
Mm.
and Trustpilot ratings are a great sign of saying that we don't do such a great job of that. And finally, we need to be fair. And I think we're going through a period in the energy markets where we have to support consumers because it's getting increasingly harder to pay people to pay their bills. And I think technology could help with all of that. If we get technologies that help us serve the customers better, technologies that help us run our organizations more efficiently, so we don't have to build that bulk of costs on top of the commodity prices or hopefully renewable prices in the future, and engage the consumers in a meaningful way, that will be the solution. That's how the utility industry can overcome this challenge.
You hit the nail on the head about the trust issue. I know because we talked a lot earlier in the opening panel about how consumers now need to be involved, and I think Marja mentioned in her presentation how they're going to become their own energy management systems as well. The role of digital obviously is going to be paramount. We know that it's going to be significant in taking this sector forward. Where do you see that going in any aspect? But also, where do you see the role of technology, decarbonising the customer, the consumer, and all of that sort of in the mix? What's sort of your thoughts on that?
I mean, digitalization is paramount, right?
Yeah.
It's we're moving to a world in energy where balancing of power. Let me talk about the market side a little bit, and then I'll come to the consumer side. Balancing of power happened largely in futures markets. You could set your hedges in the day ahead horizon. You could do some shaping to match your supply and demand, and that was great. That
Mm.
model doesn't work anymore. We're having to do a lot more micro adjustments in real time. So the trading of power or balancing of power is moving increasingly into real time. I think if you look at the volumes traded on day ahead market, that paints a very, very clear picture. Now, in that world, there's a massive place for digital because these decisions are becoming far more rapid for humans to calculate and act on. But also, the other dimension is the number of assets we have to manage has changed. 10 years ago in the UK, we had about 4,000 generation points, all centralized large power plants. Today, we have over a million. Every solar panel on a roof is a generation point. In the future, we're going to have 50 million of those. And unless we digitize the system so we can pull telemetry from every corner of the network, we can get telemetry from all the generation assets. We have excellent forecasts of what demand is going to do, an ability to vary that demand by controlling these new clean carbon technologies. We will not achieve the end goal. So digitization is the glue that enables all of that coming together.
Yeah, it's an interesting. Well, it's an interesting time. I mean, you look at digitalization because what we talked about earlier. We talked about predictive maintenance, AI, IoT, measuring consumer patterns. So, how do you think the application of AI and machine learning, facilitate all of these intelligent distributions? Because you've got
Yeah.
these technologies, and how are they going to contribute to the UK net zeros policies as well? Because these are the ones that we hear about the most.
Yeah. So it's quite interesting having this conversation just as Google has announced that they have a sentient AI. Scary thought, but there's a lot of room. Going back to the previous point, the speed of things is too fast for humans to manage, and the change
Mm,
rate of things is too fast for linear programming to solve. So you need machine learning, reinforced learning in your systems to solve that. And I've been the one to say AI maybe not, but some good machine learning definitely, and maybe AI
mm,
in the future as well. I was talking to my colleagues just a couple of days ago, and we've got this. I think some of my colleagues have mentioned we have this type called intelligent Octopus that asks electric vehicle owners, heat pump owners, battery owners the simple question that we should always have been asking to consumers: What do you really want? And electric vehicle owners will say, "Well, I need 80% state of charge tomorrow morning at 7 a.m." And then it's up to us to figure out what's the
mm.
times to charge that car to make sure it's charged with the greenest electrons and without damaging the network, right? That's the biggest
Yeah.
challenge we're going to have. Because if in the Western world, people will get home at 6 to 7 p.m. in the evening And we know from our studies, they will plug in their cars straight away.
Yeah.
That's the worst nightmare for a utility and a network operator, right? But what we have been doing, we've been running Intelligent Octopus sort of in the stealth mode for about a year. We've got a few thousand cars on it now, customers using it every day. And
Mm.
we've collected enough data to start understanding this. And using machine learning now, the teams, as of the last couple of weeks, have an algorithm that can forecast, typically at noon today. So it would happen noon today, starting from 11 p.m. to 11 p.m. So really forecasting 11 hours to 35 hours ahead. The exact time people are going to get home, when they plug in their cars, what state of charge is going to be in the car already, so you know how much you need to charge it by to meet the objective by tomorrow morning, a forecast
Mm.
of pricing, and use that. And we're getting, close to 90% prediction rates, even at this early stage. And the only way to improve that, as you get more people into the mix, the behaviors will change. You need machine
Yeah.
learning. And that in applications like that, it becomes quite critical. If you move into the supply side of the equation, predicting if batteries are about to fail. I mean, we've got 2 gigawatts of batteries in the UK today. We're going to have, if you believe numbers, 15, 16, 17 gigawatts. It'll be a significant part of our energy system. So predicting if those are about to fail, solar, wind, all of this will require different levels of machine learning.
Yeah, that's fantastic. An explanation on machine learning, actually, and the predictive maintenance side as well, on what people are going to use and when, especially when it comes to the charging side. It's a worry though, the charging side, because if everyone uses it at the same time and they want to plug it in at the same time, it's about balancing that power, isn't it? So, but it's fantastic insights, Devrim. I have to, because it's nice to go into depth a little bit in this topic, and sort of ask, thoughts, where the future is and what technology is going to be and how is it going to enable this. So, Devrim, thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure. And I hope to obviously speak to you again very soon. But many thanks for your contribution on that.
Thank you for having me, Adam. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Cheers. Fantastic insights from Devrim, who is the CEO of KrakenFlex. KrakenFlex is an Octopus energy company. And if you want to find out more about them, please go onto the website as well. We're now going on to a 15-minute networking break, and we're back for the final session of the afternoon. So I've got an interview straight after with Michael Janssen, Chairman and CEO of City Zenith. And then we're on to our last panel of the day. So I'll see you in 15.